You were not designed to fit in from the minute you breathed your first breath. You carried something distinctive, something wild, untamed, something the world could never completely define. They attempted to shape you, control you, and blunt your edges to meet their delicate expectations. But you were never meant to be caged. You were created to break boundaries, to burn through the illusion, stand where others would kneel. Every scar, every rejection, and every nagging doubt they instilled in you was never a curse. That was evidence, proof that you were always more. They labeled you too intense, too odd, too much, but it was only their dread expressing, because they saw something you didn't realize. You're unstoppable. This is not only a voyage. This is your reckoning. The world does not get to choose who you are. You do. Your skin, intellect, and fire. These are your weapons. Use them without apologies. Step into the storm without fear. You were put here to be understood. You were sent here to alter things before I created you in the womb. I knew you before your birth. I set you aside. Jeremiah 1:5. A blacksmith does not ask the iron if it want to be formed. The fire does not ask permission before consuming everything. What is weak, fate does not knock. It claimed from the start, before you could even say the words, before you realized what made you unique. The mark was already present. It was inscribed in your spirit, undeniable and unshakable, woven into your very essence. You were never intended to blend in. You were never designed to follow the crowd, to get used to everyday conveniences, while the rest of the world continued to dance, living without doubt. You felt something more. There was a whisper in the depths of your being. They felt a tug towards something beyond their vision. Others perceived your stillness for remoteness and your concentration for coldness, your questions about revolt. But deep down, you knew it was not revolt. It was a revelation. This fire inside you, this constant need for more was never a hardship. It was a call, a summoning from something larger, something that cannot be explained to people who are not supposed to bear it. However, it was not without expense. The rest of the world didn't comprehend. They couldn't. How could they identify something that had never been implanted within them? How could they understand the sights that kept you up at night? The wisdom that was inside you before you had the words to express it. So they backed away. They whispered. They labeled. They locked the doors and turned their backs, thinking that the distance would make you reconsider what you already knew. They wanted you to shrink, silence your own voice, and disregard the power that surged through you. However, you cannot unsee what has been exposed. So you strolled alone. But loneliness, God has not weakened you. It sharpened you. Closed doors became your training ground. Rejection became your armor. Every time they questioned you, every time they rejected you, it became gasoline. They felt they were pushing you away, but all they did was drive you further into your mission. You were never intended to fit into their mold, and you were never meant to remain where they are. You were not handed this fire to control. You were not called to choose the easy path. You were sent to devour, tear down walls, and burn through the illusion of constraints. And now you stand on the brink of everything that was always supposed to be yours. The path ahead is uncertain, but it is certain. There is no power on earth, no rejection, and no resistance. Nothing can undo what has been inscribed in your soul. Heaven announced your mission before the world ever knew your name. And no one, no force, no fear, no failure can alter what has already been written. The unknown has always been a source of worry. Anything beyond understanding is classified as a danger, a disease, or an error that must be addressed. They transformed your clarity to a phantasm, your understanding into instability. They wanted you tiny, controlled, and predictable. Anything that threatened their comfortable perception of reality had to be demolished. This was always the way of the world. They scorn what they can't control, reject everything that does not comply. However, those who are beyond the scope of comprehension are the ones who rewrite the rules. Those who see beyond the curtain become the builders of what follows. Those who were formerly dismissed as idiots are now honored as the brains that altered reality. It's a cycle. This has been true throughout history. You are no different. You can observe how they cannot travel through gaps. They are completely unaware of their existence. You are not out of alignment. You are in sync with something beyond their grasp. What they call chaos is really a language. They haven't yet learned to talk. They are brother and sister. May the peace of God be with you today. I'm here to remind you of a fundamental fact. Our existence is based on God's divine design, which is unaffected by worldly worries. According to the Bible, everything is done with faith will be returned to God with great blessing. Luke 638. Like the enormous oak tree, our roots are profoundly embedded in God's global truth. His power secures every stride and every stance we take. And now you have the chance to be a part of that gift. When you click the super thank you button and contribute $100, your generosity will be rewarded 100-fold. What is today considered a myth may one day be regarded as true. The old world dread the arrival of the new. However, evolution does not seek permission. The invisible currents of reality shape everything, bending to forces. That rationale has yet to be explained. The borders they cling to are just chalk lines, waiting to be swept away. Perceptions are not fixed. It is a construct that changes with each generation. You stand in the gap between what was and what will be, a power that is neither imprisoned nor limited by its boundaries. They label it craziness because they can't quantify, dissect, or shape it to their will. However, knowledge does not seek to be believed in. It exists, whether they admit it or not. As a result, they resort to labels, whispers, and traditional dismissing strategies. In their dread, they want to transform you into something terrible in order to deprive you of the power they feel but cannot identify. But no amount of words can contain you. There is no question that they can erase what you already know. The stone that the builders rejected has now become the cornerstone. Psalm 118:22. They dismissed you, believing they were tossing something weak, imperfect. But they didn't see what was under the surface. They didn't realize what they were attempting to shatter was something divinely formed, polished in fire, made to resist, and meant to rise. The world has always dreaded what it can't control. It follows patterns, procedures, and expectations in order to keep things predictable. And then something unusual emerges. Something that doesn't bend. Something that will not surrender. It disturbs them. It compels people to look in the mirror and reconsider what they thought they knew. They branded you irresponsible, unpredictable, and dangerous. They murmured behind closed doors and pointed fingers, attempting to transform you into something more understandable. They instructed you to shrink, soften, and fall in line. But what they actually meant was, make yourself small so I don't have to confront my own limitations. They did not reject you. They were rejecting a mirror of their own worries. Because walking in truth, standing in your full, unwavering authority, pushes others to see where they have compromised, where they've settled, where they've let the fire inside them to fade. But you never let them take your flame. Every insult, betrayal, and moment of rejection was not a funeral. It was a seed. Every wound they attempted to cut into you served as fertile ground for something greater to grow. The storm they brought to break you was the same wind that propelled you upward. They believed they were shutting doors, but they were only opening new ones. Pathways? They will one day regret they had walked themselves, since rejection is never the end. It was the beginning, and now you stand unshaken, unconcerned, unaffected by their doubt. The voice they attempted to stifle has become louder. The presence that they attempted to remove has become obvious. You were never intended to fit within their world. You were sent to alter it. They attempted to extinguish your fire, but all they did was fan the flames. And now? Now they'll see. For so long, shackles existed unseen, woven into words, conventions, and expectations that governed every action before it was taken. There was no need for a lock when the mind has been conditioned to obey. Every lesson, every enforced norm, and every unstated regulation created an invisible but palpable prison. Nonetheless, even the most deeply ingrained programming has gaps. The unraveling does not occur all at once. It starts quietly. A pause, a query, a whisper of doubt breaks through the well-constructed falsehoods. The weight, which previously seemed natural, starts to suffocate the scripts passed down as fact, making them sound hollow. And suddenly, in a single instant, everything changes. Too enormous to ignore, and the illusion is broken beyond repair. Perhaps it was a betrayal, perhaps loss, or a quiet revelation that matured into an underlying vital force. Whatever it was, it ripped apart everything that seemed certain. What follows is not an escape. It is a reclamation. The self that had been buried by expectations has emerged unshackled. There is no returning to the confines of the past. What was once a cage is now just dust. In its absence, there is simply endless space. The world that was once obeyed is now being recreated. But he knows how I respond when he tests me. I will emerge like gold. Job 23:10. Gold does not naturally shine. It is extracted from the depths of the ground, coated in rock and dust, and thrown into the fire. Heat, pressure, and purifying flames. Even without the fire, all of this is required. The contaminants stay without the pressure. The strength is not disclosed. And this is just how God has formed you. Every fight, every adversity, every time when you thought you couldn't take another step, nothing went to waste. Every storm that attempted to bring you down was really shaping, sculpting, and preparing you for what was always intended to be yours. The fire was not intended to destroy you. It was sent to burn down everything that was never intended to last. You have undergone a test. You have been pressured on all sides. The weight of rejection, loss, and betrayal. It seemed excruciating at times. You wandered through valleys so black, you wondered if you'd ever see the light again. There were evenings when you wanted to stop, days when the weight was too big to bear. The adversary whispered into your ear, "This is where it ends. You have gone as far as you can go." But deep within, there was something more powerful than the anguish. Something that would not allow you to bow. Something that would not allow you to break. That was the fire in your bones. The holy spark that was put inside you before the earth's foundations were built. That passion couldn't be quenched by disappointment. The naysayers were unable to suppress it. It could not be taken by those who attempted to bring you down. What was put in you was never delicate. It was never weakened. It was unshakable, unstoppable, and everlasting. And now you are standing, not as the person they once knew, not as the one who tried to find their place, but as something made in the fire that they believed would devour you. The fights you fought were not hurdles. These were assignments. Every setback served as a learning opportunity. Every difficulty served as a sharpening. What they intended was to do damage. God transformed into preparedness. So, as you ascend, don't rise bitterly. You do not rise with remorse. You gain in power. You grow in purpose. The burden they attempted to impose on you has dissipated. The labels they attempted to affix on you were incinerated in the fire. You're never ordinary. You were never supposed to fit in. You were picked, chosen to burst down boundaries, change atmospheres, and carry something the world has never seen before. So you take a step forward, not just surviving, but flourishing. Not only standing, but conquering. Not only existing, but truly embracing the destiny inscribed in the skies before you breathed your first breath. The challenges did not shatter you. They built you. The anguish did not overcome you. It crowned you. And now the world will see what was always intended. An irresistible power forged in fire and destined to shine even in the darkest places. Others glimpse the unseen. The weight of this journey cannot be borne alone. And although the world may seem enormous in its indifference, there are people whose fire matches yours. Recognition does not occur in great gestures, but in a look, a word, or an unconscious understanding interchange between individuals who share the same path. They are concealed amid the ordinary, dressed in the disguises of regular life, waiting for the time when their presence is noticed. They don't have swords, but their power is unmistakable. They don't claim titles, but their knowledge is undeniable. They're the voices that remind you of things you already know. The hands that hold you when the weight tries to take you beneath their existence demonstrate that, however difficult, this route was never intended to be alone. They are located not in temples or old ruins, but in the most unexpected places, on bustling streets, behind offices, and at crossroads, where truth is silently woven into the fabric of the universe. They don't declare their mission, yet they're constantly there, moving the tides in ways most people don't notice. Recognizing them is the same as recognizing yourself. Understand that power lies not just in isolation, but also in union. The trip does not need seclusion. It asks for people who will walk beside you, each carrying their own light and altering the world in their own quiet, inexorable manner. For when 2 or 3 people meet in my name, am I among them? Matthew 18:20. A single flame may flicker, but when flames combine, they become a conflagration that no storm can extinguish alone. A tree might bend in the wind, but a forest remains unshaken, and those who are called were never intended to travel alone. The greatest deceit the adversary ever devised was the sense of solitude. He wanted you to feel that you were alone, that your troubles were solely your responsibility, that your vision was too unusual, too distinct, and too hard for anybody else to comprehend. But that was never true. That was never the intended design. Strength was never intended to be developed in isolation. Strength is founded upon togetherness. Have you felt the pull of something greater? The unconscious knowledge that there are others. Other people see. Others who listen. Others who share the same fire. You're not alone. You never were. The world may have attempted to disperse you, keep you apart, and sever the connection before it could develop. Because they understood the truth. Someone can be silenced. Many can't. Scattered embers burn out. But when they combine, they form an uncontrollable wildfire. And the blaze has started to spread. A power rises under the surface, invisible yet obvious. It progresses thread by thread, voice by voice, action by action. It's a global web that's being pieced together. What was previously buried is now gaining form. This is not the responsibility of one individual, one leader, or one rescuer. This represents a confluence. Many pathways, many voices, and many hands working toward the same goal. This is how things have always been. Every major awakening, movement, and change in history began with many people aligning, moving, and standing together. The time for separation is past. The gathering has started. The time of emergence has come. The world will not see it coming. They won't comprehend it at first. However, the power of individuals who walk in the truth cannot be controlled. The days of moving in quiet are over. The powers that formerly strove to separate have crumbled. Those that are dispersed are discovering each other. When they do, nothing can stop them. So, stand steady. Stand together. The fire is still in its early stages. The battlefield does not consist of stone and steel, nor is the biggest adversary an exterior one. It is the whispering in the back of the mind, the weight of ancient wounds, and the constant echoes of a civilization that wanted to maintain control. Restrained doubt is the most pernicious of opponents, infiltrating every moment of pause and uncertainty. It is a shadow that understands when to attack, always on the verge of metamorphosis, always when the following step seems too good. But it's been seen before. It's been battled before. And it is no longer an adversary to fear, but rather one to control the intellect. A battlefield becomes a disciplined environment. Every invading notion is greeted not with opposition, but with comprehension, deconstructed, and stripped of its illusory strength. Fear is not erased. Rather, its patterns are deconstructed until it no longer dictates the route ahead. Awareness shifts. Weakness in strategy converts hesitancy into accuracy. The war within was never intended to be won by repression. It was designed to be accepted, harnessed, and used as a weapon. When inner conflict becomes a weapon rather than a curse, no external power can demolish what has been established. A presence arises, not just forceful but impenetrable. The storm may roar, but it cannot penetrate the mental barriers. With this skill, the ultimate illusion crumbles away, no longer holding back. I am no longer tormented by doubt. The route ahead is obvious. The energy that has always lived inside us has finally come to full realization. There is nothing left to do except go into it. Hello to everyone. Every purpose under God has its own season and time. Ecclesiastes 3.1. A farmer does not sow seeds during the dead of winter. Sailors do not set sail when the winds are against them. And the warrior does not strike until the opponent is within range. Timing is everything. The world may be in a haste, may scramble, may pursue every fading moment. But those who are genuinely called, those who live in divine purpose, understand better. They understand that true power is found not in movement itself, but in understanding when to move. You've watched the globe paw at opportune cities, pushing doors open before their time, straining itself, pursuing what was never theirs. They run, they grip, they get into a panic. But for what? Those that are intelligent do not spend their energy flailing wildly at the air. They wait, they pay attention, they are watching, because they recognize that every promise, breakthrough, and moment of destiny is predetermined. It is not delayed, it's not lost. It merely waits until the allotted moment. There is a beat behind everything, a pulse, woven within the fabric of life. Most people never pause long enough to experience it. But you're never like them. Have you always felt it? That tug, that knowing, that deep, unwavering conviction that things will unfold exactly when they are supposed to. You were not called into despair. You were not meant to move in fear. You were designed for alignment, and alignment requires patience. The opponent will say that you are behind and missing out. You must use force to make it happen. However, the opponent is completely unaware of divine timing. He is unaware of the doors that will open at the allotted time or the paths that will clear when the season is appropriate. Those who are genuinely chilly will not pursue. They prepare. They train. They polish their blades in solitude so that when the time comes, they are prepared. Because hitting too quickly might result in missing the target. Acting out of season might imply entering into something before the foundation is solid enough to support you. Just as a fruit harvested too soon is bitter, a destiny hurried before its time can shatter under the weight of unprepared hands. But when you wait, listen, and move exactly when you're supposed to, nothing can stop you. This is not hesitancy. This is mastery. This is understanding that the promise does not need your terror, that the future does not necessitate your concern, and that what is intended for you is already yours. You simply need to be ready when it comes. So you stand steadfast. You are trustworthy. You watch the tides and breezes change, knowing that when the call comes, you won't hesitate. While the rest of the world is going around in circles, squandering their power and draining their spirits, you will only have to move once. This is the essence of divine timing. This is the strength of someone who knows what season they are in. Here's what it means to be selected. The struggle has never been external. The biggest challenges were never found in the hurdles set in front of you, but in the invisible powers that attempted to tie you from inside. The war was never against the outer world, but rather against the lie woven into your own mind. Fear masquerades as prudence. Doubt is disguised as reason. Shadows, whispering, limitations as if they were true. The most pernicious chains are those that we cannot perceive. They persuade us to kneel in front of an opponent who never existed in the first place. But suddenly the illusion is shattered. Clarity is the razor that slices through falsehood, and those who wielded stood out of reach. Darkness has always thrived on confusion, keeping you adrift in mazes of ambiguity. But the instant you see through the lies, its grasp weakens. Power is not obtained via force. It is regained via understanding what it means to walk unshaken. Not because wars no longer exist, but because nothing outside can shake the foundation that has been laid inside. No longer bound by the need for validation. No longer persuaded by assumptions from people who never knew. The rising becomes inevitable. They previously referred to you as irresponsible and lost in terror. The intensity was beyond their ability to convey. But now, uncontested, they are unable to look away. The power that once scared them has become unmistakable. Strength is no longer in dispute. It is an unwavering truth. This is a climb that comes from awareness rather than conquering. The crown was never bestowed. It was always there, ready to be worn. Rejection once loomed over you. They recoiled as the weight of misunderstanding crushed on them on all sides. Not because of your weaknesses, but because they couldn't understand the magnitude of what you brought to them. Anything outside their understanding was a danger, something to be suppressed, confined, or removed. However, the names they flung at you and the exile they imposed did not shatter you. Instead, it became the fire that refined your essence, honing your vision to the point that it could no longer be ignored. This voyage was never intended to gain their favor or force them to realize what was beyond their reach. It was about truly embracing oneself and rejecting the urge to fit into a world that was too tiny to accommodate you. The illusions that formerly bound you have collapsed, and you now stand in the full power of your reality, requiring no explanation. Your ascension is not a unique incident. It causes a tremor that shakes everything around you. The shift you have accepted does not stop with you. It promotes awareness among people who are still stuck in the obscurity of their own unrealized potential. Your presence is no longer an isolated force. It's a catalyst. Those who formerly walked silently, doubting their own ability, may now understand what is possible. The echoes of your stubbornness, strength, and unwillingness to shrink become a hint that it is time. The unseen and unspoken. Those who had previously felt their dread fade have now woken to their own light. The world does not need to be ready. Whether they accept it or not is immaterial. The time to hide is done. There is no longer need to ask permission. Stop smoothing your edges to pacify the scared. The past was based on reluctance. The future will be shaped by people who refuse to vanish. This is not about conquering or validating. It's about standing, unwavering, unshaken, unstoppable. The weight of past preconceptions no longer binds you. The voice that was once suppressed now influences reality itself. The light that was supposed to be muted now burns with such intensity that it cannot be ignored.